This is going to be George W. Bush's first visit to this country, and this is rather surprising, especially given the frequency with which his predecessor, Bill Clinton, visited this country. He was here 3 times during his presidential term, and this is particularly even more surprising given the importance of Ukraine for American foreign policy. After George W. Bush came to power, and especially after the so-called Orange Revolution that brought pro-Western countries to power in Ukraine, the United States has significantly increased funding and financial aid to Ukraine, especially when it comes to funding various pro-democracy programs. And this visit by George Bush, as it was quoted on the White House website, is also aimed to show support to the advance of freedom and democracy in this country. But of course, there's also another very contentious issue on the agenda, and this is Ukraine's bid to join NATO. This visit comes just days before the NATO summit in Romania, which may discuss whether or not to put Ukraine on path of joining this military alliance. And this is, as you just mentioned, a very divisive issue for the Ukrainian people. According to various polls, more than half of the Ukrainian population strongly oppose this initiative. And this is my colleague Yulia Popova has prepared a report to explain you why the opposition to NATO membership is so high in this country.
This man has seen the heart of many wars. Alexander has been filming on the front lines for more than 20 years. This film is about the Soviet-Afghan war, in which more than 14,000 people were killed. Seeing the war as it is, he doesn't want Ukrainian soldiers to return there. But if Ukraine joins NATO, he says, they will be used as fresh cannon fodder.
Those boys that we lost in Afghanistan, most of them were from rural areas. If you went to those villages after the funerals, you'd not see one single man there who would want to join NATO.
Opinion polls conducted in this country over the last 15 years show that more than half of its population reject the alliance. Alexander from the Sofia Sociology Center says that most respondents describe NATO as an aggressive military bloc and are afraid it will ruin relations with Russia.
When President Yushchenko, the Prime Minister, and the Speaker sent that infamous letter to NATO officials, public support sank even lower. Almost 62% voted against it, and even the information campaign didn't help.
Despite these striking figures, Ukraine's government continues to push for the membership. Prime Minister Tymoshenko stressed the economic benefits of cooperation and reminded people that they will be the ones to make a final decision in a referendum.
Politicians will not decide for the people of Ukraine. No one will take us there by force. At this stage of our relations, we are talking only about enhancing cooperation. Russia's cooperating with NATO as well. I don't see anything to worry about now.
But as the saying goes, there's no smoke without a fire. President Putin said that possible admission of Ukraine into the alliance will put Russia's security at risk, which could make Ukraine a new target.
It's frightening not just to talk about this, but even to think about this. That in response to such deployment, the possibility of such deployments, and one can't theoretically exclude the possibility that Russia will have to point its warheads at Ukrainian territory.
These warnings irritate the 20% of people who support NATO's expansion in Ukraine. Yuri says that his country must finally shed Russia's influence.
With NATO, we'll get more respect and independence. Russia will pay us market prices for the Black Sea fleet bases, and they will finally stop cutting gas off to us. We will rationalise our relations.
President Bush is expected in Ukraine to advocate a similar message. Mass protests are planned by opposition parties against his arrival. For the years of independence, there has hardly been anyone out in the streets welcoming NATO. Both President Yushchenko and Prime Minister Tymoshenko have been flying all over Europe, asking for their country to be accepted in the NATO. But perhaps they should have spent more time at home convincing their own people whose level of support for the alliance is very low. Yulia Popova, Russia Today, Kiev, Ukraine.
One of these rallies is actually going on behind my back here on the Independence Square. You can probably see these sea of red tents and red flags. These rallies organized by the Communist Party, and it's just in its early stages. We've seen just a couple of dozens people here, but they say they intend to stay here up until tomorrow's evening, when George W. Bush is set to leave Ukraine. And their message is, of course, that they strongly oppose any intention of joining NATO. They are also carrying some anti-Bush slogans, calling him dictator, and this is probably the mildest word they're using. Overall message of these rallies that neither George W. Bush nor the U.S. politics and policies are welcome in Ukraine. But this is just one of the rallies. We are expecting many more of them to take place either today or tomorrow. Overall, security measures have been stepped up, and they are very high given the number of all these rallies. We've been told that about 4,000 policemen are engaged in ensuring the security of this visit. So